Oh, there's no place like home for the holidays. And no matter how far away you roam, if you pine for the sunshine of a friendly gaze, for the holidays you can.
Welcome to the first episode of Horror for the Holidays, a Christmas horror movie podcast. I'm Jay Logsden.
I'm Jeff Searcy.
And as we just mentioned, this is our first episode. I guess what makes us, we don't really have any qualifications to do this other than we just like Christmas horror movies.
Speak for yourself, sir. I'm a huge nerd and a huge asshole.
But we, back in like 2015, no, probably later than that, a little later than that maybe, we met through a job.
A terrible job.
Yeah, and one of our first discussions early on was about we were talking. I was talking like, oh yeah, it's going to be Christmas here soon. My wife and I love to watch Christmas horror films, and you said to me like, oh, have you checked out the R.L. Stine's The Haunting Hour Christmas episode? And I hadn't seen that, and so I went and watched that, and it just kind of sparked kind of a mutual interest in this kind of weird subgenre of horror movies,
which apparently there are a ton of.
We've done the research, and as of last count, there's maybe almost 200.
Oh, at least.
So we're gonna try to cover all of them, and hopefully you'll stick around for the ride with us, and we'll see where we go from there. So this is our first episode, and we are going to cover To All a Good Night.
To All a Good Night, which is ostensibly a movie.
1980s. That's the year it came out. You can stream it on Paramount Plus if you would like to watch along.
I suggest you buy a Blu-ray copy for yourself, though.
It's the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray extras are well worth it. There's 3 interviews and a trailer for the movie that gives the whole movie away in the trailer pretty much.
He's not kidding. The entire movie. Basically every kill is in the trailer.
So before we start off these episodes, before we get into the synopsis of the movie, the first thing we like to do is we do a little thing where we deck the halls, which is running kind of over anything interesting we found about the film, anything just to kind of say beforehand, just before we get into our general synopsis of the film. A couple things I noticed. The probably biggest star of the movie, or biggest stars of the movie, Jennifer Runyon as Nancy. It's her first film. We will see her again, hopefully, in Silent Night, Bloody Night 2 Revival. And then Harry Reams as a plane pilot who is most famous for appearing in Deep Throat. So that's a interesting thing. But those were the 2 biggest stars I found, or the 2 biggest names, certainly.
Yeah, and the biggest interesting connection I found was Jennifer Runyon, who plays Nancy, is married to Roger Corman's nephew, which is ostensibly how this film got made. They received a little bit of funding, and I believe they must have used his shooting style for this, because with how low the budget was, I'm assuming this was shot over the course of a couple days.
Director David Hess was the first person to record the song All Shook Up, which was, became a much bigger hit when Elvis recorded it. This is David Hess's directorial debut.
The biggest thing I saw was it was completely savaged by the critics when it came out, and they were saying it was basically an indistinguishable cliched slasher film, which, I mean, at the point it came out, slashers were not even that old.
No, relatively speaking, not at all. Some of the earlier slashers, certainly in the 70s, but yeah, it certainly takes a lot from, or it feels like it takes a lot from Halloween, but it's much worse.
I mean, yeah, pretty much anything it would have taken from any other movie, dial that down a couple levels, and that's what you get in this one.
One thing I did find kind of interesting, as far as I can tell, This was released January 30th of 1980, which means that it predates Christmas Evil as, I believe, the first killer Santa Claus movie. I'm not 100% positive on that, but it's certainly not the first Christmas horror film, but it is certainly the first, from what I can tell, the first killer Santa Claus movie.
Yeah, that was pretty much what I found out too, looking into it, because I was kind of curious. Because honestly, for the amount that this movie gets thrown around as a killer Santa movie, you really don't see the Santa suit all that much in the movie.
Yeah, it's not really until the second half, but it's certainly there, and there's a bit of a twist that if you're not paying attention, you might not see coming.
Oh my god, the twist.
But we should probably get started with our synopsis, unless you have anything else.
No, I just want to say that I love when New York cops, especially ones based in Brooklyn, come out to LA to investigate a case.
Yeah. That is a plot point certainly that we will get to. So the movie starts off 2 years ago at the Calvin Finishing School for Girls on Christmas vacation.
Sorority.
Yeah, we see a bunch of girls running through the house, horsing around. One could be heard yelling, just like Jeff said, sorority. And we see one of the girls fall off a balcony. In the fall, it is clearly a dummy.
Oh my god, it couldn't be any more clear if you just shot a dummy right directly on.
They cut to, I think, all the girls maybe standing on the balcony staring down.
I think you can catch a couple on the borders of the crowd kind of smiling.
Yeah.
Like they're not sure what they're supposed to be doing.
Then we see the girl that fell off the balcony dead. Then we get a red filter over the screen and the title card, "To All a Good Night," and it runs down, the main cast.
Which I've got to say, great title.
Yeah, it's an excellent, certainly an excellent title. The title does not match the level of quality of the movie. That red filter, by the way, we will see it multiple times over the course of the movie.
Oh no, I'm sure we'll never see that again.
So now it's Christmas vacation present. So 2 years later, a bunch of the girls are seen departing with their families. We are introduced to Nancy and the other girls, whose names are, forgive me,
We got Melody, Leia, Trisha, and Sam, although I think is Leah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's Leah.
Oh, and don't forget Cynthia.
Yeah, and Cynthia, who is probably the wildest of the characters in this movie. Then we are introduced to Mrs. Jensen, who's, I don't know if she's the headmaster of the dorm or the headmistress of the dorm or like the house mother.
She seems like a house mother, but then again, she also seems like she's kind of a mix of everything, like a cook, and also she seems like she's doing laundry. I don't know.
Yeah, she's a far cry from Mrs. Mack in 1974's Black Christmas, but she kind of informs the girls, "Oh, dinner's gonna be ready in a little bit." And there's constant talk about what they're having for dinner. It gets reiterated maybe 3 times in the space of 15 minutes that they're having stew and cherry pie for dessert.
They're hungry, and not just for food.
Yeah, because the girls are also supposedly flying. So Cynthia, is it Cynthia's boyfriend?
Yes, I believe it's Cynthia's boyfriend. Yes, he's just hopping over in his dad's plane, like we all have.
Oh no, Cynthia. I think Cynthia is another girl. Hold on, is it?
Oh no, I think Cynthia is the first girl who gets killed, right?
Yeah. So we've got our.
So do we have our girls mixed up?
I think we have our girls mixed up. It might be Melody or Leah. I don't know. Honestly,
in the movie, these girls, you recognize them by their appearance. Their names rarely ever even come into it.
Other than Nancy, they're pretty much all indistinguishable brunettes.
we've got British accent.
Yep.
That helps identify one of them.
I believe it is Leah. Leah is the one who maybe it's kind of implied that she has she's well off. She's more maybe well-to-do than the other girls.
Yeah, it certainly seems like Nancy doesn't really fit in with this crowd. That maybe she's a little bit like on the lower economic side of these girls,
or as we learn later, maybe newer to the school.
Yeah,
but Leah's boyfriend is flying in on maybe his plane, his private plane, or he's chartered a plane. And they're flying some boys into a private airstrip not far from the school.
Yes.
Because, all schools have have that.
Private, an unattended airstrip.
Yeah.
On school property.
And so they're flying some boys in there. So, the boys will be there at midnight. And remember, it's going to be midnight, and it certainly won't look like the middle of the day when all the girls sneak out to go.
That's not possible.
To go, meet up with these boys.
Oh, let's not forget, there's one critical plot point you need to remember. Pies for dessert.
Yeah, the pie is for dessert. While the girls are getting ready to go to dinner, we see a gloved hand writing a list and taking a knife out and looking at the picture of the girl who died at the beginning of the film. The 5 girls eat dinner. A 6th girl named Cynthia, that's the girl that we got confused with Leah, is meeting with a boy. I think Mrs. Jensen says something. Oh, where's Cynthia? We're getting ready for dinner. Oh, she's not feeling well. She said she wasn't hungry.
And that's another important plot point I think we forgot to mention. The dean of the school will be gone for the break.
Yeah.
Which is why they think they can get away with this scheme.
They are going to drug Mrs. Jensen.
Oh, yeah.
So, with warm milk and I think something else.
Cough syrup, maybe.
Yeah, and she'll sleep for 10 hours.
Yeah, we're gonna give it to her, but Nancy has to give it to her because Nancy's the only one she trusts.
Yeah, she'll know something is up if the other girls give it to her. Cynthia is meeting with her boyfriend. We see then the gloved hand kind of POV shot murder the boyfriend and then murder Cynthia. We are introduced to Ralph, the creepy groundskeeper.
Oh, yeah.
And Mrs. Ronzoni, who we will never see again. I don't know what purpose she served in the movie.
She's the Italian connection to let you know that there's a lot of people from Brooklyn in the area.
But otherwise, I had seen this movie before, and I remember when she popped up this time, and I was like, I don't remember her dying. And she doesn't, because she shows up in this one scene and then disappears, and we never see her again, even though just about everyone else in the movie dies.
I wonder if that's going to be a theme in these movies, these lower budget movies where characters randomly show up in one scene and never show up again.
That could very well be the case. Then strangely, we see the same picture of the dead girl that the killer had in Mrs. Jensen's room, but don't pay any attention to that.
No, definitely not.
Is Mrs. Jensen the killer? Hard to say.
Definitely not. I wouldn't suspect her.
So the other girls convince Nancy into giving Mrs. Jensen this warm milk that's drugged, and the girls go to meet their boyfriends, or Leah's boyfriend, at an airstrip, and we're introduced to TJ, Alex, Tom, and Blake.
The boys.
Yep, the boys. And and while that's happening, I think Nancy runs into Ralph the groundskeeper while they're traipsing across, and he mutters something about, it's evil out there.
Watch out, Nancy, it's evil around here.
Yep, there's some kind of evil around here.
Devil fought it thick today.
And that's also a reoccurring theme with his characters. He keeps talking about like sensing a great evil. And I think there's maybe a line where Nancy goes out and runs into him, and he's like, "Go get the luggage." Why would there be luggage if they're only supposed to stay for one day?
That's a great point. And how much luggage would you be able to carry on that plane along with all those guys?
Yeah, it's a very small...
We're talking about a very small one-engine plane here.
So I think they're all hanging out. There's, it's a college or a finishing school. So of course one of the boys has to whip out his acoustic guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And annoy everyone else by playing it, because that's what happens at colleges.
I mean, every college I've ever seen in a movie.
So they're all sitting around talking, and Trisha goes to the kitchen to get a beer for one of the other boys.
Yeah.
I think this is the first instance in which we see the killer in the Santa Claus suit.
Yeah, I think we get a brief glimpse of the Santa suit when Cynthia gets murdered with her boyfriend, but not like the whole thing.
I think in that scene it's just like gloved hands,
like a glove and a sleeve.
Yeah, I don't even think it's those are Christmas. I think it's just like a pair of brown gloves. Now, remember, we just saw the killer in the Santa Claus suit, and everyone else was sitting in front of a suit of armor in the main room.
Yes, I'm sure that won't come into play later.
One of the other boys then goes to find Trisha. He goes and like he finds her like stuffed in a, I don't even know, like some kind of outside.
It's kind of hard to tell what she's stuffed into exactly, but he basically, as soon as he sees her, he realizes that she's dead.
Yeah, and the killer Santa Claus then attacks him and bashes his head in with a large stone.
Yeah.
And the killer then buries the bodies. Now remember, we've seen the killer do all of this. And then kind of everyone splits off. Nancy, I think, goes and gets something to drink, and all the other boys and girls have paired off. And we see Sam and Blake, two of the kids,
The hot young teens.
yeah, these hot young teens. We see them.
They're having sex.
Yep, in the parlor
like
in
the
front of the
common
suit of
room,
armor. Shoots an arrow.
Oh yeah.
Through
Crossbow straight through the face.
Yep, through Blake. Sam is terrified by this. The armor comes to life and like decapitates her, while Nancy like sits outside and assumes that the screaming is moans of passion.
And basically she's like, I'm sure it's fine. And then she runs into Ralph again.
Yeah, she goes up to her bedroom, and Ralph comes in through a window, and he's like, "It's evil out there tonight, Nancy."
It's evil. Stay inside. Lock your door.
Even though, and I'm pretty sure the window he came in through, there's like blood smeared on the window, on like one of the window panes.
There is. There's totally blood on the window pane when he walks.
All this seems to point that like I'm sure we're supposed to believe that Ralph is the killer.
Oh! Don't forget the very, very important plot point going on right now. Melody is taking the nerdy guy, and you can tell he's a nerd because he doesn't want to talk about sex and has glasses.
Yep.
Into her bedroom to try and seduce him.
Yep. It's unclear what happens, but certainly the nerdy guy Alex says like, "Oh goodness."
Oh my.
When the lights turn off and he's under the covers. So the next morning they're all kind of eating breakfast, and I think TJ is that the main boy? It's
Yes.
Alex and TJ.
I think that's the main asshole.
TJ is like, "Oh, where is everybody? Oh, they must all be sleeping in," even though it's a very small. It's a big mansion, but it's very
like,
small.
Yeah, there's like a small area where everyone would sleep, and he's just like, "Duh, where is everybody?"
Yeah, just has no idea where people is, and Alex starts chasing Melody around, and then he starts chasing Nancy around, and Nancy runs away from him,
and that's when she stumbles across Ralph, who's dead. Because it was evil out there last night.
Yeah,
Ralph. Listened to him.
Ralph's been murdered, and we get another red filter across the screen.
Appropriate, a red filter for a red herring.
We are introduced to Polanski.
Yeah, I think it's Detective Polanski.
Who, as Jeff said, he's straight out. He's like a Brooklyn cop.
Yes, he's a Brooklyn cop.
But,
I mean, he looks incredibly Italian, but I mean, he sounds Polish with the last name Polanski, so who knows?
But he for whatever reason, this clearly New York cop is stationed in California.
Southern California, obviously, yeah. Well, maybe he's just out on an investigation.
And so he talks to everybody and reassures them, and he said he's gonna put his like two best men on the case.
Don't worry, I'm gonna have two of my best flatfoots on the job.
And they're supposed to protect everybody, and I think he tells them, he's like, don't
keep your hands off those girls.
Yeah, these girls have rich, powerful fathers. Keep your hands to yourselves.
Hey, you know what I'm talking about, gabagool. You better do your job.
Capiche? I think he says to the girls, he says something like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm sure the killer is hundreds of miles away by now. I'm sure he's not here."
He starts off by saying, I'm sure he's far away from here by now. And then the second time he brings it up, oh, he's hundreds of miles away by now. So I think if he had an opportunity to bring it up a third time, he probably would have been thousands of miles away.
I think maybe it even said thousands of miles away. I think Alex or someone says
he's probably thousands of miles.
Oh, he's probably thousands of miles away.
So basically we're getting this killer must actually be Santa to be traveling this fast.
Oh, the killer, he's at the edge of the universe by now. He's nowhere near us.
Oh, the killer? He entered a quantum singularity, and he could technically be anywhere at once.
We then kind of get another dinner scene.
Oh my god.
And Leah seduces one of the cops. and
with her boyfriend watching.
Yeah, with her boyfriend watching. They go upstairs. Then the other cop is kind of like,
yeah, you go walk the perimeter.
yeah, I'll go walk the perimeter. You get a good night's sleep. And instead he's sleeping with Leah. TJ, Leah's boyfriend, like kind of stumbles in on it and turns around and leaves, and he goes to seduce Melody. The whole time Alex and Nancy have kind of developed a connection.
Yeah.
And there's a weird scene where Nancy talks about like a picture on the wall.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't like that picture. It's not very Christmassy. And there's no implication that picture should have been Christmassy.
I know.
Like it's a picture that's probably been it's a mural even potentially that's been up in the house the whole time.
As I say, it looks like it's been up there for years probably. Like it's just part of the decoration of the house, and it's like, okay, so why should that be Christmassy?
Right. It's a very weird comment.
Maybe she was just struggling for something to say.
Leah and the police officer. Oh no, so then I think Melody and TJ are kind of are talking, and Nancy and Alex kind of go to investigate. We get a scene where Nancy and Alex are walking up a set of stairs to like the attic, and there's probably my favorite part of the whole movie. There's a window behind them, and the killer Santa is sitting in the window behind them, watching them go up the stairs. Then when they turn around and come back down the stairs, the killer Santa is gone.
That is a great moment in the movie. I think we missed though. So while I think is it Dan? I think it's Dan and Jim who are the police officers.
Yes.
So Dan's the one getting laid. And while he's doing that, Jim gets killed by Santa just running right up to him and hitting him in the head.
It might be my favorite kill of the whole movie. It's this great scene where he's kind of like, what are you doing here in that stupid outfit? And the Santa Claus has like an axe over his shoulder and just swings it right into his head. And there's like a slow motion.
Oh yeah, I love that slow motion shot.
And it just connects with him right in the forehead. And we see, his body fall to the ground.
Which also gives you a clue, because I didn't think of it at the time, but it seems like he knows the killer, because he's like, what are you doing here in that stupid suit?
That's a good point. It might be nothing, or it might be a bit of foreshadowing. It's hard to say. It's certainly with this movie, it's hard to know.
Yeah. I mean, there's no guarantee that they knew what they were doing, but I mean, it does fit.
So then Leah and Dan Leah goes to take a shower, and while she's in the shower, the killer Santa attacks Dan, the police officer. Then it attacks her. We hear her screaming, and
doesn't she start screaming because she sees like Sam's severed head hanging in the bathroom?
Oh yeah, that might be it. Yeah. I wasn't sure if that was then or if that was later.
I think she does it then, because then the killer Santa emerges after that, and then she just kind of breaks down and starts screaming in the shower. And
at that moment, in my mind, okay, Leah's dead too.
Right, because there's no reason not to.
Right. We then kind of get...
I think we briefly see her... This at the very, when the scenes are transitioning, she's kind of doing her hum dance that she'll be doing for the rest of the movie.
It's very strange. And so we kind of get Melody and TJ, and then we see one of the Santas, because there's no way there's not two killers. At this point, it's got to be so obvious to you that there's two killers.
Well, and they're outside completely unaware of everything going on.
Uses some piano wire and essentially garrots him, or hangs him with the piano wire from the tree.
See, I don't know which one is my favorite. I love this kill, and I also love the suit of armor coming to life.
It's very silly. So Melody kind of runs back. She's screaming and freaking out about everything, and Alex and Nancy run upstairs. They're gonna find Leah or find anybody that they can before they leave.
Yeah, they run across her in her psychotic state,
and that's where we discover that for whatever, the killer has killed all these other people but hasn't killed Leah for some unknown reason,
apparently because the trauma broke her mind. Apparently killer Santa thought that was good enough,
which it makes no sense in the context of the rest of the movie. The killer Santa shows up, I think, kind of swings for there's a moment where I think they walk into the bathroom and they find some of the dead bodies, and Alex just goes I think I'm gonna be sick.
Yeah.
And all the girls run off, and we have no idea where Alex is.
Yeah, he's just gone the entire time.
The implication is that he's just puking after seeing all these dead bodies.
Yeah.
So the killer is going to attack Melody, Nancy, and Leah, and Melody is able to kind of escape and runs off to the airfield.
Yeah, because she thinks that's her best bet to get away.
And it's unveiled when the killer attacks Nancy. For whatever reason, doesn't attack Leah. Like we said, Leah's off dancing and humming the whole movie. It's revealed that the killer is Mrs. Jensen. Surprise, surprise.
Mrs. Jensen?
You mean the person who had the
picture of the dead girl in her room?
Yep, and she's muttering about how you killed my daughter, you killed my daughter, I'm going to kill you, you killed my daughter. And Nancy goes, I'm a freshman, this is my first year here, I didn't know your daughter.
Exactly. Which, how could Mrs. Jensen not know that? That'd be like something she would easily know, because ostensibly she's been working here for years.
Yeah, I didn't even know your daughter. It's my first year. I think is roughly the line. And when I heard that line the first time, this was not my first time watching the movie. I laughed so hard.
Mrs. Jensen's basically just like, yeah, well, fuck you.
And so they kind of chase you. Like Mrs. Jensen kind of chases Nancy through the house. I think Nancy kind of causes her to fall off a balcony the same way.
Oh, so let's stop for a second, because at this point you're realizing, okay, so either she didn't drink the poison milk at the beginning, or there's two killers.
Yeah.
Which then is immediately confirmed, because we cut to Melody at the airstrip, who grabs the pilot, and the pilot's like, oh man, what's going on? She's like, we gotta get out of here, everybody's getting killed. So he's like, he makes an actual sensible choice in a horror movie. He's like, okay, yeah, let's leave. But before they can leave, obviously, Santa is already in the plane.
Yeah, has started the engine and cuts them to pieces with the propeller blades of the plane.
And at that point, there has to be two Santas.
Yeah.
Because Santa's here doing this at the same time as the back at the house chasing them around.
Yeah, and so Nancy kind of is chased by Mrs. Jensen through the house. We then see Nancy kind of trips her or causes her to fall off the balcony.
Some kind of struggle on the balcony, reminiscent of what happened to her daughter.
Yep, and Mrs. Jensen falls and dies. And then we see the other Santa come up, pick up the body, kind of let Nancy's crying on like a couch in the living room next to where the suit of armor and the Christmas tree are. We then see the other Santa kind of bring the corpse in, like, the cover of Crisis on Infinite Earths, where Superman's holding Supergirl's dead body, or
carefully cradling this body. So obviously this Santa cares about the other Santa.
Yeah, and lays it next to her. And then kind of like looks up. It's like, you killed my daughter and you killed my wife. And it's Detective Polanski, which leads me to believe he put his two worst detectives on the case.
Yes, obviously he knew these guys weren't up to the challenge.
Yeah, he knew these two guys would get killed,
which is what makes me think that maybe the detective Jim walking the perimeter recognized him. And that's why he had to die so quickly.
And so he starts, I think, choking Nancy.
Oh, yeah.
We see Alex pop up with the same crossbow from earlier in the movie.
Chekhov's crossbow.
Yeah, and kills Polanski with the crossbow.
I mean, it's a nice kill, too.
Alex and Nancy run off to, like, go get help. And then we see Leah still, like, standing up on the balcony dancing.
Doing her little dance.
The first time I watched this, because I don't know why the killer Santa didn't kill Leah.
Yeah.
And the first time I watched this, I seriously thought, did they film this movie in order? And she went, no, you can't kill my character, I'm too important. And then just proceeded to interrupt every scene she could that way. I don't know.
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what happened and they just were like, oh yeah, she just went crazy is the explanation for it.
It makes no other sense.
But against horror cliches, there are actually two survivors to this one.
And so, it's certainly early in the horror movie, slasher movie boom. We like we said, this is before Christmas Evil. This is 1980s. This is right after the first Halloween, pretty much.
This is like right on the border. Like, slashers aren't new, but they're also not as rote as they are today.
We get to the end of the movie. Credits roll. I think we get another red filter. There's 2 or 3 other red filters over the course of the movie.
Oh, that when you have an effect as amazing as the red filter, you have to use it.
But that's kind of the general synopsis of the movie. I don't think we missed too much.
I don't think we missed any major plot points, but you should really just see this for yourself, because we can describe it to you, but you all have to see it to believe it.
So we're going to kind of move on, and to kind of wrap up our review, we're going to go through a couple different kind of categories we made for ourselves, covering kind of minutia, things we noticed in the movie. Our first one is Christmas carols. Favorite dialogue, favorite quotes. What were things you picked up on?
I love
Jeff?
the pie is for dessert.
That's a good one. I had sorority.
I love that.
As you know, people in Greek brotherhood and sisterhood love to do, running through just yelling fraternity. I don't think that's ever happened.
I mean, what else goes on in there?
There's another one, and this is a piece of dialogue I didn't hear. I watched it again with subtitles, and there is a PA announcement at the beginning of the movie when all the girls are kind of leaving. It's roughly, if somebody has their underwear hanging on the south line with a very blue stain, they better remove it.
Yes.
I don't know what that line is, but I think it's one of the strangest things I've discovered while reading subtitles to a film.
I also re-skimmed this movie last night with subtitles on, and yes, I did notice that too.
Because you can't hear it. I swear you can't hear it when it says it.
It's too far back in the audio track. I think there's too many voices talking over it.
But it's there. Like if you know it's there, you can kind of hear it, and it's wild. Any other quotes?
No, not really. I mean, it's just so full of great. It's got, that kind of almost B movie, but not quite that good dialogue. So, I mean, almost every line is great.
And there, the continued moving back of the killer of the killer's location.
Yes,
is maybe not the best quote, but or the best bit of dialogue, but it's very funny that like the killer keeps getting further away every time they bring up.
But I mean, if you want to go with the absolute funniest quote of the entire movie, it's, "Oh, I didn't even go to school here."
Yeah, I didn't go to school here. So if that's it, we've got a Christmas sweater. What is your favorite costume or outfit, or what were kind of your takes on those?
I thought the costumes were mostly bland, to be honest, for most of the characters. It's just regular clothes. Nobody really stands out. And I think, in fact, that's one of the biggest issues trying to tell these characters apart, is a lot of the girls dress almost identically. And but I mean, the Santa suits were nice.
Yeah, the mask is very creepy. Because there's a mask that the Santa Claus suit kind of wears.
Yeah.
Under the beard, it to me a little reminiscent of the remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night, in the mask style. But the mask, the Santa suit is appropriately creepy.
Which I think, honestly, they probably had to make a choice whether to put their budget into the killer's costume or into general costumes. And I think they made the right choice, making the killer distinctive.
The one other thing I saw, and I think you and I disagreed on it, I kind of liked Polanski's suit jacket. It was a bit of like a yellow crosshatch, almost plaid style. And I don't know, there's something about that suit jacket. I was like, if I saw that suit jacket for sale somewhere and it fit me well enough, I'd probably wear it.
I mean, I like the suit jacket, but it reminds me too much. If anybody listening to this has ever seen NYPD Blue, Andy Sipowicz, one of the main characters, wears these jackets all the time, and I can't look at a jacket like that without thinking of him. And so that's kind of where that comes from.
Another bit of minutia, I guess, moving along. Christmas spirit. How Christmassy was the movie / how Christmassy were the kills?
The kills were pretty much not Christmassy at all, I would say. I mean, they're being done by Santa, so I guess that gives it one Christmas point.
But it's, certainly it's no, if the level is kind of like generic kills to the 2006 remake of Black Christmas, where if memory serves, there's a lot of like murdering with kind of Christmas themed stuff. That Black Christmas 2006 pukes Christmas at every single scene. There is it's like Christmas threw up all over that whole house, and I love it. It's probably the thing I like most about that movie. This one is not it's not the least Christmassy Christmas horror film I've ever seen.
True, they
but
at least make an effort.
Yeah, there's some strings of lights around. There's a couple Christmas trees. They mentioned that it's Christmas a couple times.
Yeah, but I mean,
and there's a killer Santa.
Honestly, I would have liked to see, like, you know, somebody get strangled with a thing of Christmas lights, maybe, or, you know, like, not all the kills be like, they could have made The Rock kill something more Christmassy, something like that.
The kills aren't that Christmassy, but as you said, the killer is dressed as Santa the whole time, or not even the whole time, but for about half the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
there is a scene. And maybe it's just me, maybe it's all these movies that I've watched, but I did feel that the axe kill on the cop Jim was kind of Christmassy. Sometimes I don't know if I picture Santa with an axe sometimes because of like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the animated the Rankin Bass thing where there's I forget the name of the guy now, but I think there's like a woodsman or something like that.
Yeah.
Or if I associate Santa Claus with an axe from like Wild Man in the Woods kind of stuff, or more than likely it's because of the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise. But certainly, once again, kind of the first killer Santa with an axe is this movie. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And so that was, I felt, maybe the most Christmassy kill, but I might also be projecting my feelings of other possibly better movies onto this movie.
Well, I mean, if you had to associate Santa with a weapon, I think an axe would make sense, because I mean, one of the biggest symbols of Christmas is a tree, which, I mean, generally people used to cut down before we got all these fake trees. You would cut down your Christmas tree and bring it in. So, I mean, an axe would make sense for Santa.
Yeah, that's a good point. Other than that, the one other kind of thing I picked up on, and we mentioned this earlier, was the line where Nancy was looking at that weird picture of the man and the woman in the boat on the river. And she's like, well, that's not very Christmassy. And was never implied that it was supposed to be. It's a picture that's probably been hung up in that house the whole time, and maybe she just noticed it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. But I mean, honestly, as far as general Christmas spirit goes, leaving the kills out, I mean, you said there were a few decorations around. They mentioned it's Christmas a few times. I would have liked maybe there, because I mean, it is set in California. I mean, we think. It seems like Southern California. And obviously, they wouldn't have a whole bunch of snow and things like that at Christmas time. But I think we could have done with like some more decorations around like the outside areas, maybe. There's
a strand of Christmas lights around a doorway, and I think maybe I don't think it's actual frost. I think it's that canned frost.
Yeah.
And there's a couple scenes around that doorway that I think are really, like, I kind of look at that scene and I'm like, that feels like a Christmas. That feels like a Christmas scene. And there's another scene, like I said, like where they're all kind of gathered around a Christmas tree a couple times, and like, okay, that feels kind of Christmassy. But other than that,
honestly, it's got a pretty low Christmas rating as far as Christmas horror movies go. But then again, I mean, they're obviously using, which I'm guessing a lot of these, because I haven't watched nearly as many of these as you have, but I'm guessing they're using the Christmas break thing as a way to get the school more empty so this could take place.
Yeah, and there's a I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. Shit.
Happens to everybody.
But I agree with that. I feel like that's why they're using it. They kind of need an excuse. Maybe the movie would have done better if it hadn't been released in January of 1980 and had been instead been released in December.
Yeah, I'm guessing they were probably aiming for December of 79, but they just couldn't make it for whatever reason.
I remembered what I was going to say. The house, earlier on, we were talking... we probably should have put this at the beginning of our review or our discussion of the movie. The house was rumored to be like a sheik who fled the country.
Yes, I did notice that detail. Which, yeah, that did used to be a popular vacation spot for Middle Eastern tourists, Southern California.
So there's that kind of knowledge. But other than that, maybe that picture has been there the whole time and Nancy just noticed it in that one scene.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, it's like, they're both standing here. They got to say something. Maybe have her mention the picture on the wall.
All right, and then our last kind of thing, at least for now, maybe later on we'll add more categories. Certainly, if people want to write in with other potential categories for us to add, or if we start noticing a reoccurring theme, we can add something to it as these movies go on. But our last thing is to give this movie a rating, and we rate it on one of three possible categories. Those three categories are: is the movie seasonally scary, hilarious, or you'll be sorry? So Jeff, what would you rate this movie?
I would rate this as hilarious.
I agree. I also think this movie is hilarious. It's too funny. It's too ridiculous to be taken seriously. It's not bad. I've seen much worse movies.
It's not nearly bad enough to be you'll be sorry, but I mean it's nowhere approaching scary either.
Yeah. There's I don't know how many of these movies we're gonna hit, just based off of all the ones I've seen. I watch Christmas horror movies year round. Based off of how many I've seen, I'm not sure how many we're going to hit that are genuinely going to be seasonally scary. Right now, off the top of my head, I can think of maybe two, but I'm not thinking very hard. But a lot of these are going to be in one of the two later categories, and almost certainly this one is not a bad one. This one is way too funny. There's hilarious lines, there's hilarious kills, there's complete and utter nonsense within the script. The people don't know their relationship to other characters.
It's clear that some of these people were brought in to shoot like for one day only, and they were kind of just given like a brief overview of what their character is supposed to do.
And in a later movie, like certainly not like, Black Christmas 1974, other than Margot Kidder's character being a drunk, all the other girls are pretty much interchangeable, but like I at least know Olivia Hussey, I know Margot Kidder, I know these characters, Andrea Martin, and so like I'm able to kind of piece these three apart. In this movie, I don't know none of these actors other than Nancy have ever really gone on to do much of anything. And
I mean, even Nancy's career has been mostly Christmas horror themed.
Yeah, she has two. I think Ghostbusters. She has a couple Christmas horror movie, or she has a couple horror movies. Has a couple horror movies in general, and then maybe Jennifer Runyon, I think, maybe appears in like a Brady Bunch movie.
Yeah, she's had bit parts and small roles in a lot of stuff. It looked like,
which I mean, good on her. She took some time away to raise her kids, which is an admirable thing to do. But that's when she's kind of the high point of the whole movie. In a later film, I feel like they would have made the girls more different. They would have made one the nerdy girl, one the jock, one now I feel like I'm running down the cast of the Loud House. But they would have distinguished them more. But all the girls bar Nancy are completely interchangeable.
Yep. I mean, it seems like they might have tried to give them some distinguishing traits, but it didn't really work.
Yeah.
Basically, Nancy's the only character. I mean, Nancy you definitely remember, but I mean, even outside of the female characters, it's like all the boys except for Alex are interchangeable. It's like basically all the background characters are. I mean, honestly, it's like, oh, Mrs. Jensen is the killer, and it's like basically you get no backstory, no time with her. Other than it's like, oh, we know that her daughter died after we see the picture in her room. And I mean, Ralph is just completely, he's like an enigma. You basically learn nothing about him the entire movie until he's dead.
But beyond that, this would be where, this being our first episode, we don't have any emails to read out, but this would be where we would plug emails, where we would clean out our email inbox, a little segment we like to call
Garbage Day! Huh? No!
And so currently we don't have any emails, but if you would like to write into the show, send us an email at horrorfortheholidays@gmail.com. Also follow us on social media. We have a TikTok, Horror for Holidays, and a Twitter, the same, Horror 4 Holidays.
Yes, definitely follow us everywhere and send us lots of unsolicited advice for the show.
Yeah, our goal is to hopefully get better, but without your help, we probably will stay just as bad as we are right now. Other than that, make sure to rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcast or whatever your podcatcher of choice is.
Personally, I'm planning on getting worse, so stay tuned to see that.
Oh man, just the gradual decline of this show.
This is going to be the high point.
Yeah, it's all down here from there, which is sad because we're going to get to some better movies. But this is what you signed up for, so please stick with us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks for our next episode, and we will talk to you then.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.